We are recording.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone, and to our November 1st Friday, and this is our second or third Zoom connection after leaving Adobe Connect and going to Zoom. And I have to say, I'm really enjoying going to Zoom. We have a lot of, I think, stronger capability of doing some sharing, and it's easier back and forth from the things that we're sharing, so that's been a lot of fun. And I'm also delighted that it works so simply. I'm coming to you this morning from the West Coast where it is 6 a.m. And I'm at Molina Healthcare for meetings with National 4-H Council, but also some discussions about what we're doing in the area of health in cooperative extension nationally. So it's a exciting place to be this morning, and glad to be able to join you from the West Coast. And Larry, as you said, is joining us from Texas, and we'll be speaking later. Our agenda for today's First Friday is focusing on our impact reporting and some updates on how to do that and what our time frame is, and just some tools that we're going to introduce this morning that we hope that will be helpful to you for that. Larry Lipke is part of our e-extension team. And we're going to be sharing some resources that we have as being a premier member of e-extension, and some things that we're going to be one of the first states to put into place to unveil that this morning as well. So we're first going to start with our reporting person extraordinaire, and that's Jen Bulk. And Jen, I'm going to switch things over to you to kick us off. And just thanks everyone for joining us and for the information that we're going to share today. And we'll have a time for questions. Please feel free to use the chat or to have you just turn your mic on. We haven't done that very much, but I certainly welcome us doing it live through mic as a way that we can connect. So this is our agenda for today, and Jen's going to lead off. I'm going to talk about how we're using some of this data and show you examples of what we've done with this, so you have some of that in front of you as you think about doing your reporting this year. Then I'm going to turn it over to Larry, and he's going to introduce you to this resource we have, this tool to help our skill set in doing some impact reporting. So Jen, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Wanted to just quickly go over where we're at in the system this year with our planning and reporting. There were a handful of people who got hung up with the rollover process for the 2015 plan, so I've been working with them to get that finished up, and we're almost there. As far as reporting goes, about almost 30% of us have been in the system at some point within the last month, mostly doing output reports. We're not quite as far along with the reporting as we were this time last year, though. There's 12% of the folks have not done anything since August or September. 22% haven't done something in there since sometime this spring, probably when I did the trainings. And 37% of us haven't reported anything yet. So you guys are going to have a lot of catch up to do. And I'm confident we're going to get there. I know everyone knows this is a priority for us, and we're going to go and get our information. Another way to look at our reporting to date is when you look at the number of days we've collectively planned versus what we've reported so far. So here it is broken out by all of our 11 different program areas and what collectively the UD staff have put in for what they plan to do, as well as what's actually been reported so far. So we're about 33% of the way towards reporting what we plan to do. And again, we only plan for 80% of our time, so really we should be well exceeding this 6,000 days by the time we're all said and done. It's just interesting to kind of look at some of the areas where local urban food production and access, not a whole lot was planned, but there's already been a more than double number of days reported in that area. So that's sort of an interesting thing to look at. Just quickly wanted to go over and review again the 3 types of reports that we have in the system. What you'll do most of are the output reports, and this is really what you did. You put on a workshop, a camp, you did a fact sheet, you developed a website. Within the output reports, this is also where you're going to report how much time you spent on that activity. So as you're doing your output reporting, really kind of keep in mind that there's on average about 20 work days a month. So you can check your progress and see how much of your time you've reported by using the year-to-date summary, which is a link on the left-hand side of the reporting menu. So as you do your reporting, you can go in and see before you put in anything for the month of November, where were you when you left off on October? Check your calendar. Did you work about 20 days? So in the end, you should go back when you're done reporting November and see, well, did I get it all or did I forget something? Maybe there was some program planning time I didn't account for. Outputs are also where you're going to be capturing your participants. And try to remember that the participants are the people we educate. So you don't need to count participants if you're in a meeting with your colleagues or if you yourself are a participant at a meeting. You're really trying to capture the people that you've taught in some way, whether it's a direct contact or an indirect contact. So this information from the outputs, we do go and summarize for the federal report. We add up all of our outputs cumulatively by program area. So we know how many workshops were done or how many fact sheets were developed. We also add up all of the time that was spent by staff in each of these areas, and that's converted to full-time equivalents. And we count up the participant information, so it's summarized by direct and indirect adult and youth contacts by each area. So this information is used. For the indicator reports, this is numerically how you're quantifying your impact. So it's the number of people who've learned something or the number of people who've adopted a behavior of some sort. And you're most likely getting this from evaluations and surveys. So we ask that everyone try to evaluate one program area every year. And you can and really should use this information in part of your impact statements, which is what I'll go forward and talk about next. So only a couple of people have really put in any impact so far this year. Again, this is something you need to have done by the end of the year. For the narrative reports or the impact statements, Michelle's going to really go into much more detail on this, so I won't go into that, but I will talk about what we're asking for you to do, and that's the 3 impact statements by the end of the year. One should be unique to you and your efforts. So it's okay if you tag other people or you work on developing a group impact statement, but you should have something that you can be able to pull out and put towards your promotion portfolio that is clear what you did for that effort. And one of your impact statements should really try to contain some of that indicator data. So the impacts you're having, number of people who have learned or adopted a behavior. And all of these can be uploaded to your performance appraisals in the spring. So we've had one person who's been active who has their 3 impact statements in there already, and he should feel good about himself. So just quickly, by the end of the year, I didn't change the date, so 2015, you need to have all of your output reporting complete, all of your indicator data entered, and your 3 impact statements entered. With the last Directors Weekly on Friday the 30th last week, there was the tip sheet that was attached to that. So if you are one of the folks who hasn't done anything or hasn't done anything lately, that should be able to help you. By January 29th, 2016, we're asking everyone to submit their 2016 plan for approval. So I'm going to have the group plans, any edits made to them, done by the end of this month. And I'm going to be able to push a button and automatically roll everyone over this year, so you don't have to look for how to do that. Your 2016 plan should appear on your page, and then you can just go in and edit the number of outputs, the amount of time in each program area you plan to spend in 2016. You also should remember to pull out that Word document. That's your detailed plan that says specifically when you are going to do 10 workshops, what are those 10 workshops, when are they, and what's your role in them. And that's what you copy and paste into that input form on the system. I think other than that, unless you've had any major changes or you're anticipating changes for 2016, some of you may need to add or delete program areas, but for the most part, it'll just be updating those numbers, the amount of time you're going to spend in each area, and then the number of outputs. So with that, are there questions from anyone on the planning and reporting and what we're asking you to do by the end of the year and the end of January? I don't know if I can see the chat box at this point.
Jen, I think it will pop up if somebody chats, and anyone you can unmute your microphone.
Okay, well, if there's nothing, I'm always available by email, and if you give me a call, I can try to help you that way too. So maybe we're ready to move on and have Michelle go over her part.
Okay, well, thanks, Jen. I appreciate all the work that you do on a yearly basis to get us through the system and to help us with this. It's really greatly appreciated. And I think an important thing that you just said is that people really need to do their year-end reporting and see where you are spending your days, so that when you do your planning for 2016, which will be here before we know it, that you'll be easily able to plan your time and how you think you'll be spending that in light of how you spent it this year. I think it's always interesting to find out how you actually spent your time versus your planned time. And as we said, we do use that data. And so what I want to start with here is just showing you simply some of the things that you may not have seen, but some ways that we're using the data. And first I want to say thank you, because last year we had 100% of our staff who were doing their planning and reporting. And I know that we will meet that again this year, and that I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of that because it really helps us to tell the story of what we're doing. And so as we work with our funders, our potential funders, and even our grants, you can certainly use the accomplishment data that you have in our reporting system and some of the numbers that we have in our reporting system to help write your proposals in terms of when it asks about what the organization's experience and documented success is. You have that from this reporting system. Likewise, as we have promotion portfolios that come through, those accomplishments and those numbers and evaluation data that you collected really help to bring right into the portfolio, as we're starting to see as people go through that process. So I just want to say thanks, because we're not as far as I'd hoped we would be this year, but I know that you will. And I know that it's just going to take some planning on our part to set some days aside to move forward to get that reporting in. And I hope that you'll realize that that's very much a part of your job. You don't need to do that over your Christmas vacation. You can schedule days now to do that, and please do. I'd rather you enjoy that holiday with your family versus doing your reporting. So just schedule it into your work to have done and accomplished, and that'll be a great way to wrap up the year. And we do start using that, pulling that data together for our federal report in the new year. That's the reason we look at everything to be completed as soon as we can as we get into that new year. So thank you, everyone, for making this a success, for being a part of it, and for the work that I know that you're going to do as we move forward to wrap up this year. I just, as I said, wanted to show a few examples of how we're using reporting data, and I think probably I've talked about federal report but never shown you any part of it. It is a huge document just because of how unwieldy it is and how we have to enter the data. But I've asked Alice, who helped me, to get a couple screenshots of our federal report, and I just wanted to pull a couple screenshots to show you how and where in the report we're using the data that you have in this system. You can see how it directly aligns. So I know it's not real clear, but here is our federal report, which we're always reporting the year after. So last year we were reporting on 2014. And at the top, you can see that we actually compiled all the direct contacts, indirect contacts for adults and youth, and that is coming right out of the system. Jen pulls a report for us that we use those data. So your direct contacts from your meetings are are important. They do go in the federal report. They do write back if our numbers are significantly different from a year later, so we hope to see our numbers increasing in terms of our contacts that we're having, although it'll be in a lot of different ways. Also see the next thing goes into patents, and that's not necessarily something we report, but we do. This is a combined research and extension report, so the research piece fits into this as well, and we're seeing how we can capture that research data. And then you'll see some things about grants awarded and undergraduate. We have measures that we use, and each of this are in each of our plan of work. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but we have 11 plans of work that are extension. We report federally on all of those, but they are collapsed into 4 major categories when we do that. Our federal funds here in Delaware are 25% of our funding, so it's significant. And having this report be successful are important parts of where we're at. And Jen, I think you're driving the slides. Can I have you go to the next slide? So you can see some of our output measures that are in here that we're capturing, and these are things that we're capturing in the system, and some that we are not from the research side that's here. But we have the actual numbers, for example, of the journal articles, and so you can put your referee journal articles in here into the system, and we're looking for how many we've had. So interesting, we had 75 referee journal articles between research and extension last year, and this is on one particular area. You're just seeing one particular plan of work area, one out of the 4 that's the combined piece. So really helpful information. Jen and I are really looking at, last year, as you know, we didn't have a full year. It wasn't a great year to summarize the data. But I'll talk later about hoping to compile all this data and be able to use it in a different way with some of our local and our state folks as we get forward, coming forward in this next year. And Jen, the next slide, please. So I know this text is too small for you to see. I'm just going to tell you what it is, and then I'm going to show you how it was used. This is an example of one impact report that was now put in the federal system. Jen talked about writing your impact reports, and remember, we talk about the issue, the response, and the results. So we still are looking for you to write your impact stories around for our system in terms of the issue, response, and results. And the reason is this really helps categorize the kind of information we need to use later. So this is an example of one impact story that was in our system. We cut and paste, we were able to pull that directly out of our system, and this is now in the federal report under the plan of work related to productive agriculture. So you don't need to read it all. This is Gordon Johnson's work on Hollow Heart related to watermelons, not related to people, but related to watermelons. And this is what he wrote. So I don't want you to be able to read it, but just so you can see that we have the issue, the response, and the issue, results, and response here. And there's actually 2 that are here. Gordon's is the top. So it's just several paragraphs. In terms of writing this, we're looking for a paragraph on the issue, one paragraph on the response in terms of what happened. So the issue is what this is all about and why it's important. The response is what happened, people that you attended, what kind of things that we were trying to get accomplished with that, and what people did with that, how they used that information. And then the results is what happened as a result of them hearing about this information, seeing it, coming to meeting, what happened as a result. So that what if question is really important. That results section is really important. So really, this first impact report is about a half-page long. That's it. That's what we're looking for in terms of the details. And if you go to the next slide, I want to share with you a couple ways that we use this. So on the right, here's the same report now with Adam Thomas taking that impact report, which I gave him. He had a phone interview with Gordon and got some additional information from him, got some photos from Gordon. Remember, those photos can be tied to our impact reporting system. You can attach them right into the reporting system, and they're there. And I can't remember whether these were attached or not. We got those. On the right-hand side, you see our college's annual report. And this is a great story with some further input in terms of people using this information and a little more detail, but a beautiful one-page impact story that's now published in our annual report. And there wasn't any rewriting on Gordon's part of doing that. It was a phone call, and we were able to take that impact report and put it right into our annual report with some brief follow-up on that. So that's the value of that. On the left-hand side, you can't see it very well, but I really wanted to just give you the URL and have you know that you can go there and see this. We also use our impact reports now in a national database. So when you send in your impact reports, the one that are the results of your evaluation, where you're really reporting impact from this year, we put them into a national database, and the web address is there at landgrantimpacts.tamu. That's Texas A&M University is the host of our national impacts site. And when you go into that site, it is an impact stories from across the country. It's searchable by some keywords that you can find this. And we are using this in a number of ways nationally when we're asked to talk about our work that we did together around a certain topic or a certain area. We're doing a search and pulling up this database, and then this is being used. So if a senator or representative would ask what's happening nationally with your work around farm risk management, they would come into this database and be able to compile the information, the impact stories about what we're doing in that. Certainly we want Delaware to be amongst that list of impact stories. And so what we're doing is when you send them in the planning and reporting system, I'm screening those, and those that meet our criteria for that database, which again have that issue and response and results section to them, we're able to cut and paste those into our national system of impacts database, and Delaware is represented there as we do that. I've mentioned K Global. They go on our social media sites as Ag is America. K Global is our national marketing firm. They work for Cooperative Extension to market our work, particularly to our legislative contacts. They work in conjunction with Cornerstone, who is a lobbyist for our funding, particularly at a federal level. And so Ag is America is tied to this database, and they tweet and they do Facebook social media efforts. They're doing several other new kinds of social media efforts, and they pull the data from this national impact database. So not only are you writing for yourself, for your performance appraisal, but you're writing these impact databases that we're using these stories in multiple ways at the state and national level. And so I just wanted you to be able to see some examples. I thought it might be an encouragement, so it doesn't seem like it's just going into a black hole when you're writing this, but we really are using this reporting system. And Jen, if you can move to the next slide, one of Jen and I's hopes this year, new uses, is we would like to be able to compile our data about the days and the contacts and that kind of information that we're having here in the state of Delaware, and put together a report, kind of a legislative affairs report that we would share with our advisory boards and our stakeholders around what we are doing specifically in the Delaware area around our 11 plan of work. Well, we probably won't do the administrative one, but the 10 programmatic ones. And so we hope to compile a report from this that's usable, that can be a talking point to help us at the local level when we talk to those the levy court commissioners and talk about what we're doing and make our case, but also to make sure our statewide legislators, who we think are going to be in a tough year for budget things, to really know the impact of the dollars that they're making. And it makes a difference to be able to tell your story. It's not just that we're existing in the counties and we talk to people, and but it's what impact, what difference we are making that helps us to move forward. So we hope to be able to summarize that, but it means, again, are counting on you to put that data in so that we can tell a very good story for Delaware. And so it is a part of your job. It's not something that you necessarily are using other than for your performance appraisal and for your portfolio, but it is something that we as a whole system are using. And now that we're a year later, I wanted to be able to share with you specifically the ways that this data is being used so that you have some sense of ownership of that data. Jen, can we go to the next slide? I just want to remind you that 2 years ago, people asked for examples of what were some good impact reports. And I haven't pulled them from last year, but you can see last year's report on that database that I just mentioned. You can go into that database. You can see what other states, I would say not all those that are in the National Impact Database from all the states are what I consider excellent examples, but there are some really good ones in there, and you can go and see what they look like and what they're writing about. But we also have on our staff resources page, on our web page, we do have that list of excellent examples. So if you're just wanting to be reminded of what some of that looks like, we have some examples out of each of the program areas there for you to look at. Reminder, you can draft these in Word and have a Word document and cut and paste them into both the reporting system and into your performance appraisal. You can cut and paste them into grant documents as we move ahead. As I said, there's a number of ways you can be reporting that and focusing on that. And as Jen reminded you, we're hoping that at least one of them would be a program that you've evaluated in some way that we really have measured impact. Or maybe it's a phone follow-up that you've done and you have soft comments and can verify how people have used it. But at a minimum, we're looking to talk about an increase in knowledge, in attitude about an area, in skill that someone has picked up some new skills and abilities. This particularly relates a lot to our youth work and leadership skills and communication skills and some of these essential life skills. And then aspirations, that can be what individuals plan to do with the information. And so even though they may have not done it and our follow-up may have been soon after the program, what they indicated they were planning to do is helpful as well. So I know that your program leaders will be talking to you soon. We are positioning ourselves to put some financial resources available for measuring and doing evaluation on a state level. And they'll be talking to you about writing a proposal. We're looking for teams to consider what they might want to measure across Delaware and doing an evaluation that might get at beyond the short-term results that are the knowledge and attitude, that might get at some of the more long-term results, the changes in a community beyond what we're doing. And we're asking each team to consider what aspect they might want to measure across Delaware as an impact area. We're going to be looking at those proposals, and the leadership team will evaluating those, and then we will be funding teams' proposals around evaluation as we determine appropriate. So I'll be working with the program leaders. We have now come up with some resources of individuals who can help us write program evaluation, help design it, the research method where we can help with the statistical analysis for that, and the data. We will end up still having to do the implementation of the evaluation itself, but we do have resources to help us with various aspects of evaluation, and we're going to fund some of those ideas. So get your thinking caps on, and at your next team meeting, I'm hopeful that that will be a conversation you'll have with your program leaders, and we're hoping to, by very early in 2016, fund several efforts around program evaluation that can help us tell our story. So one more resource that I've promised that we would look at today. I'm delighted to have Larry Lipke with us from E-Extension. Larry is coming to us this morning from Texas, and Larry has been working on something that's brand new. We have, as a national system, in addition to the database that we've just shared to you, where we're all putting our impact reports, has said across the system we all need training about how to write impacts and what to do with them when we've written those impact statements, how we can tell our story. And so fortunately, Oregon State, along with a few other states, was involved in writing some online modules about how to write impact statements. Our new E-Extension is now providing that to the states that are members of E-Extension, and we have an opportunity now for each of you to take for free whenever you want, 24/7, get into these various modules about writing impact statements They're quick, they're easy, they're short, and really enhance your skill set. So Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you to show everyone how they can get access to this and use this. And we're excited. I think we're one of the first states, they're kind of testing how we get into the system with us, but I think we're one of the first states to start using that. So Larry, thank you for joining us, and I'll listen in as well as we talk about how we can have Delaware utilize this resource.
Okay, very good, Michelle. Thank you. Michelle gave a good background on this course that's available to you now, so I don't have to go into that. But let me start by pointing you to a kind of a landing page, if you will. We currently have on about.extension.org. There's a little page here that describes the course, what it's about, what you're expected to learn out of the course. But then as you scroll down, there is particularly information here about the course access. And we point out, in this case, the course is offered through eExtension's online course site that we call campus.extension.org. Many of you may have already been accessing that site for other kinds of online educational opportunities, or maybe even offering courses through that site. But there's a link here to get started. This is where you go. Now, one of the things that is required, as Michelle said, is that this is offered for free to eExtension member institutions and their staffs. That means that if you're not an eExtension member, that you don't have free access. You actually have to pay for it. So in order to distinguish between the different audiences, we do impose, in this case, the requirement for an enrollment key, as we call it. That's a Moodle term for essentially a password that admits you for enrollment into a course. So then the question is, well, what is my enrollment key? So the getting started page here is particularly points to that. So if I will go ahead and click on this link, it takes me to eExtension, to the campus.extension.org. It is a description of getting the enrollment information. And it says, guests cannot access this course. Please try to log in. So I will continue here. And if you do that, you'll get a page where either you can log in with an account that you already have on the left side, or there's information on the right side about how you go about creating a login ID at campus.extension.org. I will remind you that this site is independent, if you will, of the eExtension people database, where your eExtension ID is assigned, and where you administer your eExtension ID. So your eExtension ID will not work here unless you've actually set up your login ID and your password here to be exactly the same. They are independent systems. In this case, I'm going to pretend to be a student, and I've actually set up my profile in a way that says that I work for the University of Delaware at the moment. So when I do that and immediately log in, I get a little link here that says your enrollment key is eExtension-ISR, with a link to enter the enrollment key here at this particular URL that you see on the screen. So I'll click on that. It brings me to the description of the impact statement reporting course, and down at the bottom is a blank for entering that enrollment key. So I will do that. And if I want to see what I've typed in, and see, I'm glad I did that because I made a typo. I can unmask that, and then just click the Enroll Me button. And having done that, I'm now into the course. A little description at the top, but the main meat of the course is all right here in this section called the course. There are 7 modules, 7 different sections. In this case, they look like little book icons, but covering the different chapters or different modules of the course. Within any particular module, and I'll open the one here about impact statements and why you should write them, Within the course, the different pages, you will find a number of videos that are in the course. So you can watch this video on impact statements and why you should write them. Navigating in the course, there's either a table of contents over on the left-hand side that you can page through, or you will find on any one page these little navigation buttons on the right side above and below the content of the message of the page itself. So if I were to page forward, I get a little bit more text, other information that you want to read through, more videos, these kind of things. Within some of the modules, there are some practical exercises. They are in the form of a little test or a little quiz that you can, just kind of a self-assessment to judge your understanding of what impact statements are about, what the difference is between impacts and outputs, these kinds of things. And in the end, after you've gone through the whole course, if I go back to the main course itself, in one of the latter modules, I think probably this very last one about marketing your impact, there is a final exam that you can take. Your final exam is a 29-question test, and if you multiple choice kind of test, and if you make at least a 75% on that test, then what will automatically happen is right in here where I have my arrow pointing will automatically appear the opportunity for you to retrieve a completion certificate. So you can actually, if you want a completion certificate of some sort to hang on your wall, you probably don't want to do that, but you can get a completion certificate and a badge if you're into using badges of any type. You can do that there. And then there's some other reference material here, who our instructors are, a bunch of other links to other resources, a glossary of impact writing terms, those kind of things. I will say that one of the things that's currently hidden on this course, we'd originally designed, and then I've taken it out of the way for right now, unless asked, is the opportunity for members of an institution to engage in an online forum. A forum is a threaded discussion, if you will. Kind of a format that somebody can come in and either pose a question or offer an idea that they might have had, or if you want to share some particular success that you've had in measuring impact on some program that you've done, or you just want to brainstorm some ideas about how to do an impact assessment. We can, on your request, I can set up that forum and make it available to you, to where you can have this threaded discussion among people at your institution, those kind of things. So anyway, that's what's involved in the course. It's fairly straightforward. The question has come up a couple of times about how long does it take to do this. So the other day I sat down and I went through every page of this course. I went to, and the various videos in there, and I watched the videos from beginning to end, or at least I let them play all the way from beginning to end. Whether I watched them or not, that's another matter. But I let them play from beginning to end, and going through that fairly, just one page after another, and deliberately taking some time to try to read the text that was on the pages. Then it took me a little over an hour to do that. If I had really been earnest about trying to learn about this thing, there are some external links within the course. One of those external links, by the way, is actually links out to an impact report out of your institution from the University of Delaware. So if you in fact want to go out and read that, I've decided that my standard answer on that question about how long it's going to take to do the course, I'll just round it off and say an hour and a half. And if you really get into it and have some distractions, maybe 2 hours. So that's the kind of thing that's involved with this course. It is available, as Michelle said, for free for you, at least through the end of next year. Chris Geith, our eXtension CEO, has offered it. Said let's just set that as a guideline for right now through all of 2016, that it will be available for free, and in all likelihood it will continue after that, unless the course gets revised and we decide that we need to take a different approach on it. So that was what we have. Let me stop sharing, and I'll see what questions anybody might have, or if you want to see something more about the course, I'll be glad to tour you a little bit more. But that's a quick overview.
So Larry, I believe I'm correct that people can go in and just take a module. So they could take how to write an impact report. They could go in and they sit down to write their impact reports for our end of the year system, and for end of the year reporting for our system. And they could take 10 minutes and probably review that module in about 12 minutes, and then go on and write their impact story from having done that. Am I correct on that? You can just go in and do a module and. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason you'd want to do the whole course is that you can take the final exam and get a certificate out of it if that's important to you. But yes, very much. I mean, and once you've enrolled in the course, you can go back to it at any point in time and review material that's there. Or, next time maybe you're trying to figure out how a good way to report it is, or how to identify your audiences and these kind of things that are in there, those different modules. And so just pick whatever part of it that's of interest and need at the moment. Absolutely.
Great. And I would say for some of our new staff, going through the whole course really could be helpful. If this is a new topic, it's not necessarily something you might have had in your graduate courses or undergraduate classes. And so taking the time to work through this could be helpful to those who have never had the opportunity to do this in the past. It really could be helpful and understand what we're doing. And I think also help our evaluation to look a little bit more about what things we're trying to capture in an impact report. Makes our evaluation questions easier to come up with. So, questions from the staff at this point?
I just have to make a little technical correction. My last name has 2 P's in it on your slide, so whichever.
My apologies.
No problem.
Any questions from the staff, either on mute or in the chat pod? Comment from Jen about she plans to take the course. I think you'll find it's pretty easy to get into and to take on. So I think we'll leave things at that. And Larry, I thank you for joining us this morning at this early hour for you as well, and for getting us all set up for Delaware to participate in this. I know you're going to be introducing this across the country, and I will try and provide in First Friday the URL for the course so that people can be reminded of where it is. I'm sorry, not in my Director's Weekly. This is First Friday. My Director's Weekly that comes out on Fridays. I'll try and provide this URL for that to folks to be able to get into that and sign up. So thank you very much for making this available for us and doing it in our time frame so we could do this today. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, glad to do it. And as I said, the about.extension.org, if you go there, you'll find both a blog post for it, and then you can also search in the little search box for impact reporting, and it'll come up.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Well, let me say thanks to all of you for joining us for this first Friday in November. We'll meet again in December, and we have one of our faculty from Animal and Food Science, who will be with us sharing some work that they're doing that's of interest to us in cooperative extension, and more to come as we get closer to December on that. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great week, wrapping up your week. A special thanks to Michelle Wofford, who picked up today's session and provided leadership for it. Thanks, Michelle. Always we can count on her to help us with so many different things. And Michelle, thanks for doing this today while Alice is out and setting things up, and I'm out of state, and just for running things and making sure things happened and doing the practice sessions, all that. Much appreciated. I think we're having great success with our Zoom technology and moving to that. And if you haven't tried this out for some of your meetings, please do so. I know some of the teams are using it for your meetings as well. So I think we're having some great things, and we will be increasing our internet connectivity for the Kent County office before March of 2016, and hopefully that's going to make our connections and some of the issues we've had in Kent County be much less problematic for us. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us for this first Friday. Thank you, Larry. Lifke with 2 P's, and we'll never to be forgotten from here. And we'll see you all in Delaware. Thanks, everyone.